Hello, Volpo here. Today I'm going to be doing a tutorial on these little wispy boys that you just saw in the intro. It's a simple three-step process. First we do the modeling, we make the landscape, and we make the wispy boys. Then we make the paths. If I go to the second layer here, these guys all follow paths. We're going to make paths for the wispy boys that they follow. And then we're going to put it all together and animate. And just like that, in these three simple steps, you are going to have yourself, if I make it look prettier with a matte cap and with a rendered display, you are going to have yourself as many little wispy boys as you want. Alright, here's my startup file. I'm going to delete everything and start fresh. For the landscape, all you do is just add a plane. You want to scale it up maybe by 10. Then make sure in edit mode, hit subdivide with W, open up the specials menu, then hit T, open up the tools menu, and increase the number of cuts to 10. Then go ahead, subdivide one more time, and we'll be good for now. Then you want to go to the modifiers tab, displace, right there. You hit new texture, and then you click this little thing. It takes you straight to the texture tab. You make a clouds texture, and so we're starting to get those distortions. You're going to want to make this size very large. So I'm going to increase the strength. I'm going to want this texture here to be very large. Now right now the issue, this isn't large enough for my likings. So the trick here, I'm going to add a object that's just empty arrows. Move it up. I'm going to make the texture coordinates the object. I'm going to select the new object. And now look, I can scale the object to get even larger size. So I'm going to seriously increase the strength. I'm going to make this very large scale. I'm happy with this, so I'm going to hit, I'm not going to apply actually. What I'm going to do is I'm going to add another displace modifier. So I'm going to change this a bit. There we go. So I have this little mound for these, I'm going to just lower the strength here. Now I have a little mound that our wisps are going to go over. Then I'm going to add another modifier. I'm going to add a new texture. Actually, what I can do to save on textures, use the same texture, duplicate the object, Alt-R to cancel rotate, Alt-S, get rid of any scaling, and Alt-G, get rid of any movement. I'm going to move it up. And now I'm going to be able to set the texture coordinates to be that of this new object. And the scale here, I'm going to increase the scale. I'm also going to subdivide it before the displacement. So it goes displace large stuff, subdivide, displace small stuff, subdivide. And make sure your subdivision is the same for the view and the render. So now with this new thing, I can go around and I can adjust the scale. And you see these are getting the finer details. So adjust the scale. I'm happy with this. And I'm going to add one more subdivision on top of everything to smooth it out. And that is that. What I'm going to also be doing, this is going to be for the future, I'm going to hit Shift D. I'm going to duplicate it. Then with the duplicated one, you see it says plane.001. Going to apply all of the modifiers. And then just to make things simpler for us later, or easier, I'm going to decimate this down to 0.25. And I'm going to move this to the next layer by hitting M and then 2. You can also click it if you don't have a number pad. And then I go ahead and on this layer, hit apply. I'm just going to make it flat. And just like that, we have this much simpler mesh. It's going to make it less processing later on, although it's not that important, nothing much. So I'm also going to go ahead and remove the subdivisions from view, just for faster processing. No, I'll keep that one. Okay, so the next thing we need to make is the wisp. So I'm going to go to layer Alt-1, just a different layer. I'm going to add a cube. I'm going to add a subdivision surface modifier. I'm going to hide it for now. Then I'm going to go into edit mode with tab. I'm going to move this over, so that way this lines up with the origin, this edge. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to bring it out with an extrusion. So I still have this ring loop right here. Then I'm going to add a bunch of ring loops right here. And I'm going to select this face all the way on this side. I'm going to hit O, turn on proportional editing. I'm going to make this sphere. I'm going to scale it down. And if I increase the size with my scroll wheel, you see that they scale down to this point. But I want them to stay in their place. So I'm going to hit Shift Y to scale it down. And so like that, we get a kind of tail, and then we add subdivision surface, And just like that, we have our mesh done. The important part is this origin. Do not hit Control-Shift-Alt-C and change the origin to be in the center. We want the origin to be on top. It just looks better. It's not actually that important. So that is that. I'm going to increase the render to 3, keep the viewport at 2, and that is the wisp done. And one more thing before we continue, I'm going to go ahead and label these. So the cube here is the wisp, the ground here is the ground, and this ground is going to be low poly ground. Now that everything is labeled, we can start working on the path. So for the path, what we want to do, I'm actually going to hide with H. I'm going to hide the ground for a moment. Then I'm going to add a plane. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to hit Alt-M, put everything to the center. So now we have ourselves, if I stay in edit mode, go into vertex selection, we have ourselves a single vertex. I'm going to bring it over to the X, or I'm going to extrude, bring it over on the X. And just like that, we get ourselves a line segment floating in midair. So to make, I'm not even sure if it shows up, but what I'm going to do is I'm going to go back into edit mode. I'm going to make sure it's above all of the geometry. So this plane, it goes up to this point, or the ground, but my line is up here. I'm going to make sure that it scales the entire distance. So I'm going to scale it along the X. So we have a line that goes across the whole thing, and I'm going to add a bunch of ring loops. This seems reasonable, 100. Yep. And that is, that's the mesh. That's our modeling done. We now need to add a shrink wrap modifier. Shrink wrap is right here. Shrink wrap. Select the low poly ground as your target. And if we look at it right now, it's not very straight. Kind of bends around. So we want to make sure that the mode becomes project. Then hit negative direction and positive. Make sure it is along the z-axis. Although, if I do it, yeah, make sure it's along the z-axis. And just like that, we have our path. And if I, really cool effect, if I drag it back and forth, it conforms to the shape of the ground. But one more thing that I want to do, I want this ground to be above. And I'm also going to add a skin modifier temporarily to make it easier for you guys to see. What I want to do is I want to add a offset of, say, +2. So now it's slightly above the ground. Now I'm going to get rid of the skin modifier. I'm going to not apply the shrink wrap just yet because I want to create multiple paths. The good thing about how we've done it is that you can rotate these paths and they still conform. So I'm going to make 3 paths. It's going to be 1. I'm going to rotate this. It's going to be 2 and 3. That's our 3 paths. Now I'm going to hide the ground. I'm going to apply the modifiers on these 3. Now I'm going to go into front view, and I'm going to select one of them, doesn't matter which one. I'm going to go into edit mode. I'm going to delete these kind of like strings at the ends of it. Just select them with circle select and then hit X to delete. Hit tab, get out of it, and hide it. Then you want to do this 2 more times, or for how many other paths you have. On my intro, I had about, I think 30? Yeah, 28. So it took some time. But now we have the meshes done. So I'm going to select it, hit Alt-C, curve. Alt-C, curve, and Alt-C, curve for mesh. And obviously if you have 30, each time you do this, hide it, and hide it, so you keep track of them. Now we have ourselves 3 curves that all go across the surface of the base mesh. One more very important thing to do, hit Control-A, location. So all the origins are going to be at the center. And just like that, we have our paths created. So now we're going to go ahead and move on to the animation. So this base mesh, or this low poly ground, we don't need it anymore. So we're going to hit X. I'm going to go back to our wisp. I'm going to hit, I'm going to move it over to the correct layer. I'm just going to adjust the scale. And then I'm going to, important step, hit Control-A, scale. So now I have my wisp, and the important thing to make certain is that your wisp is going on one of the axes. So this right here is on the Y-axis. Something like this would not work. So now that we have that done, we're going to go ahead and actually just animate it. So I'm going to select here a keyframe. I'm going to hit 100, maybe 150, and then 200. Just to show you just to act as my like beats or whatever, I'm gonna go 60 FPS, and that is our timeline. So now I'm gonna open up the graph editor right down here, and the first thing we want to do is we want to keyframe its starting location. Then we want to go to the end, move it down a bit, and keyframe the ending location. So if I look at this with the, let me move this down. If I look at this with the background, this is how its movement's looking. So I'm going to take this, I'm going to make sure that the interpolation is linear. Now I'm going to go to every of my markers, so on frame 100, I'm going to keyframe location. I'm going to go to frame 150, keyframe location, and frame 200. And you see the animation plays exactly the same because it's linear, and this is important. I'm also going to get rid of the channels that we don't need. So we're only animating one channel. This is going to be very important. It's going to save you a lot of time. So that's that. Now we're going to go ahead and bring everything back to Bezier. And these guys, what I'm going to do, I'm going to select all three, and I'm going to go through and select only the front handles. So I'm going to deselect this back one and the actual thing, this back one, and this back one. I'm going to scale these in. I'm going to rotate almost 90 degrees. Now, I have to do this on a 1x1 basis actually, because being a bit annoying. Alright. Just going to scale these in so they're small bumps. Yep. Just like that. So I play it right now. It kind of oofs, but that's okay, because what the issue right now is that these top handles are way too large. So I'm going to deselect all the bottom ones. I'm just gonna, oh, that's my issue. Make sure that you're on individual centers and then scale them in nice and tiny. Actually, yeah, scale these in to 0. No, not 0, almost 0. Staying positive. Okay, just like that, I play it. Right, so this is kind of like it's getting boosted up on each one of the plays. Oh, I see the issue here. So make sure this beginning bit's more or less linear. The issue is that these are kind of going a bit too high. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select them and select the whole thing, and then scale these things down. All right, and what you can do is you can rotate it to be a full 90, scale it up, not too much. There we go. That's how I did my sync. Gonna adjust this. So now we're going to go ahead and put these onto the path. So to do this, very simple. Let's go back to our wisp layer. Let's unhide these guys, the paths. Going to select the wisp, add a curve modifier, and select the one of the objects. Now the deformation axis, make sure that it's the axis that you did. So it's not y, it's going to be negative y. And I play through, there is a bit of an issue. And I know exactly why. So make sure you select the curves and also apply rotation. Completely forgot to do that. And while we're at it, we might as well apply scale. And now you see our wisp is traveling beautifully along the path. Right, just like that. So one thing we can actually do here to help this stuff smooth out is we can literally just go into edit mode and smooth this stuff out. Yep, just like that. So now it goes on the whole path a lot smoother. One other thing that's really important, make sure the curve or the subdivision comes after the curve. That is going to make it a lot smoother. So put the curve before the subdivision. Now if I want this to go the whole path of the curve, what I can do is go into the graph editor, select everything, place the cursor at the beginning, make sure that the Y part of the cursor, so like the one that goes horizontally, is at this starting line. Then I'm going to hit 2D cursor for a pivot point, go to the ending, so on my timeline I can just move to the ending, and scale along the Y. And every time you scale along the Y, you have to make sure that you also like update it by moving back and forth. And just like this, if we watch, kind of like wisps along the path. Only thing, oh shoot, I don't really like this too much. This, let me not go at the center. So now you can go ahead and start adjusting the sync some more. These second and third one appear way more violent. So I'm gonna make you two a lot more violent. There we go. That's really violent. I don't like that. I'm gonna scale these down. Keep trying to save, it's my habit, but I'm not saving this file. Actually, I'll put this in the description, why not? Yeah, this is for download in the description. So, just like that, we've animated it, and now the hard part's been done. So we hit Shift D, U, Object Animation, then we change the object from this path, which I'm going to hide, to a new path. Then we go ahead and hit Shift D, U, change the path one more time. And just like that, we have 3 objects moving along the 3 paths, all in sync. If we put the surface on top now, it all looks good. Alright, that was the tutorial. I hope that you learned something and enjoyed it. I might make more videos. I might not. I'm thinking about doing digital painting because right now I'm doing digital painting. So I'll see how that goes. I just want to do BIC Month 5 because it was abstract. But yeah, that's the entire video. Hope you enjoyed. I'll see you possibly in the future.